So today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, something quite interesting, and I think something that will be quite useful for you guys who might be experiencing some really interesting times that we face ourselves in, and one of them being getting a new job or getting a job in general, and how we come across navigating interviewing whilst at home. For many of you, you might be familiar with software such as Skype, LinkedIn, Business Pro, you name it, even just using things like WhatsApp, video calls, Zoom, the main one in particular. And so today we're going to run through some top tips, about 10 or so tips that will be useful for you to be able to get yourself in the best shape and put your best foot forward for interviewing whilst on view. So one of the things that is really important for you to remember when interviewing is obviously you have to understand that you're trying to represent yourself in the best way, shape and form, and that does obviously mean presentation. So we are going to have to cross over to that semi-vanity point about looking good. And I do mean, yes, wearing your pajama bottoms to the interview might not be the best idea for it, and I'm going to explain exactly why wearing your best dress for your interview is actually a good idea. Wearing your best dress does one of two things. Psychologically, it gets you into a mental state of you feeling like you're ready for the interview, that you're really going after it, and it makes you feel the part. When you start to feel the part, whether you're at home or you're actually in front of them in an office setting, it psychologically does something to you and you start to feel good. And interestingly enough, that transcends into you actually really putting on a good display. So wearing your best dressed clothes may just be the best thing for you. It might be an added advantage to you over your competitors. What you might find is wearing a really nice top, like I've got on at the moment, might just help you to win that extra edge forward. So tip number one is to wear the right thing, and that means what you would basically wear if you were interviewing them in the office. So yes, dust off those shoes if you have to, get out your best trousers and put on your best blouse, best shirt, or whatever it is that's appropriate for the industry that you want to get into. Tip number two, location, location, location. Now this is really interesting because obviously you're interviewing at home, so what could I possibly mean by location? Location, you're in lockdown, so you can't physically change your location and go interview elsewhere. But what we're talking about here is where in your home that you should be filming. Obviously, as it goes without saying, lighting is paramount. So if you can get yourself into an area where the lighting is crisp, sharp and clean, you're on to a winner. Try to avoid backgrounds that are really busy, really just distracting to the eye and just going to take your viewer away from what you're saying. Avoid areas where they'll be noisy, and just avoid any extra activities that's just going to kick off randomly out of the blue. Another point to filming for location is obviously time of day. Lighting is optimum, so if you don't have the best lightings, obviously you can do what you can do and use light that you have in your home, but please, if you can, try to film in natural daylight. And the best advice I can suggest is to try to select your interview times, if you have the choice, between the hours of 11, if it's in summertime, right till about 4 or 5, where the light in the day is generally a lot brighter and will carry on throughout the day. Winter times, if we are still in the situation we face ourselves in, or should it come to the point where you're interviewing at home for whatever reason, try to avoid anything before 3 and right up from between 11 and 3, where you're just going to get the best lighting optimum. So another tip for you to remember is that you need to understand that the mic quality and camera quality is paramount. So if you happen to film on your phone, on your laptop, on your desktop, whatever it may be, you don't need to go out and get the latest gadgets, you don't need to get an extra mic, but you certainly need to audio test. So just do a quick 5-second recording to see how you sound at a comfortable distance that you seem to be good on camera, and play that back to yourself. How do you sound? How do you look? Are you happy with it? If not, adjust. Test, and keep getting it right, because for many, this is the small difference between actually getting into the next round to them saying that they actually don't feel comfortable with hiring, because unfortunately, impressions do count, and if you go the extra mile to put the best quality of yourself out there, then it will do you some great favors. Tip number 4, sit in a comfortable seat. That might be your desk, that might be a really cozy armchair, that might be on a really nice bench that you have. Whatever it may be, have somewhere comfortable to sit, and please, not in your bed. We all don't need to go down and explain why sitting on your bed is not a good idea, but just for obvious all intention purposes, slouching is not a good look. And subconsciously, it gets you into the mind frame that you're chatting with a friend or someone who's very casual. That body language gives off in your kind of expressions, and you just generally won't give off that I'm ready, I want this job, pick me vibe that you want to be given across. So tip number 5, what you might not realize is even though you're in your own home, you will start to feel a little bit nervous if you haven't done these types of things before, if certainly not, it's your first Zoom or Skype digital interview. So have a glass of water a few moments before you start, just to wet your mouth a bit, to just get everything going, so when you talk you don't start to feel that dryness that sometimes comes on you when you're about to have a really long spiel about yourself and the nerves kick in. Also have a glass of water next to you. You're more than able to sip your water. At the end of the day, it is about you feeling comfortable. Tip number 6, if you haven't already picked up, it is to smile. The important factor is to show your enthusiasm, energy, vigor, and ultimately feel good, because if this is the role that you want and this is first round interview or second round interview, then show it. Show that you are after it. Show that you want to go after this role and that you're really desiring it, because that energy will come through, and it will come through when you show that smile, that energy, that vigor. But if you somehow tense up, it will translate and it will show in your facial expressions, which you might not realize come off slightly different than when you're in front of someone physically actually feeling their body language, seeing their body language. There are often some things that you miss when you're speaking to somebody face to face in real life than when you're on a camera and most of the body language is concealed. The tip number 7, ask questions. Please, please, please don't forget that whilst they're interviewing you and you're getting yourself used to the camera, you're talking to it and you're starting to feel good, quite often you can go off piece and really go into talking about yourself. But if an opportunity presents itself and they say to you, so do you have any questions? Please do not leave without asking any questions. And even if you somehow forget the questions that you've prepped, which I'll come on to shortly, just think of the one that will just come straight to you is, are there any challenges that you foresee being in this role? When you ask that question, it helps you to really start to understand what could be something that you, but it also shows them that you're keen on being a problem solver and really being able to tackle things. So that's a good little tip for you there. It's just that question to come up to answer if you ever come across it. But of course, going into this, you should have at least 5 to 8 questions that you can fire at them. And the reason why I say 5 to 8 is because through the conversation that they may be going through with you, you should be able to answer some of those questions already. And if there are any prominent ones that stand out, then they're the ones that you should really go and ask them when the opportunity presents. Okay, tip number 8 is definitely to test your camera angles. Now I know we covered some elements before about location, but the camera angles are so important. Sometimes you might be sitting in an area that you think looks great, and then when you realize on the receiving end, it's not so good. So all you need to do for that is just ensure that you are within frame of the device that you're using. So if it's your phone, just make sure that you're sitting within it. If it's your laptop, you're sitting within it, and you can visually see that. As a quick tip is just to test it before you go live. If you're using a MacBook, then just fire up Photo Booth, open it up, get an idea of how you look before going into the actual meeting. Number 9, definitely make sure that any noise around you switched off, but it's also ensuring that if you're in a busy road or anything like that, you just give them a forewarning. It's polite to do it, and it just lets them know that should any random noises come along the way, they can anticipate it, rather than you being in the middle of an interview and there's a loud roaring truck coming down and it's just like, are you in a farm? When you're not. So just give them a forewarning that, just so you know, I happen to be filming, I'm recording this, I'm in a busy area. You might be a Londoner, so you might be in a busy town, or you just can't get away from the fact that there's a lot of noise. If you forewarn them and you've gauged the conversation, you feel able to, definitely do. Again, it sets a precedence that you are respecting the person you're speaking to, and you just give them something to kind of bear in mind. And tip number 10, to make sure that when you finish your interview, that as soon as you come off, you switch off your camera and you switch off your mic. what you might find is sometimes some of the apps, depending on what you use and depending on the security and privacy features that they've got enabled in them, still enable the camera to keep rolling, and you just don't want to get caught with a bit of a blip or a bit of a boo-boo with something that you said after your interview. So just cut the call, switch off your mic, switch off your camera, and proceed as normal. Obviously, if you're getting back into another interview, then you can just switch it back on. It's just a good housekeeping check that I find is useful for me to ensure that I don't have to be worried that, oh my God, is my mic still on? Is my phone still on? Is my camera still on? And this can also work for just general calls that you might have on a voice call, with a conference line. Just as soon as you're finished, come off and hit mute or just turn it off. So that is basically top tips for doing an interview in this day and age through quarantine on Zoom, Skype, or any video conferencing tool of your choice. If you like that and found those tips really helpful and useful, then obviously please do share these and just leave a comment below if there's anything else that I might have missed or that you would like to see or share, because this channel is definitely all about sharing and encouraging and inspiring others. So the more that we can really share, the more that we can all grow. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Bye for now.